Right after I hit record. Go ahead, do what you got to do, man. I can edit it before we put it up.
All right, I'm just plugging in right quick because I'm running out of juice.
Mm.
Good fucking notes, Mason. I mean, I was eating every word up. I felt like I was there.
I mean, that was my goal the best I could, right? Just because it's tough when you're a fan sitting at home and you have no idea. The Bears don't give you a lot of access, and so just to give something to feel like you're there is, I think, important.
He's my fucking hero today, man.
Hey, I'm popping out. You guys are recording whenever you want to start.
All right, I'm plugged in now. You ready, Doc?
Yeah, let's do it.
Dr. West in here for us on a recording, man. Yeah, I was so grateful that he went out to practice today and was willing to come back and share his notes. Man, I was eating up every word, Doc. I mean, they were good, copious notes. I felt like I was there. Help the fans kind of, if you could, kind of describe what you saw today and what really stuck out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the first things, right off the jump, getting to see what some of the lineups are going to look like. So, for example, defensive line wise, you had Walker, Billings, Rasheed Green, Justin Jones as kind of that main D line. Gibson definitely rotated in there, but right from the get go, at least from our vantage point, that those were the first ones out there. A little bit of a caveat: the first chunk of practice, right? They do their warm ups, they do their individuals. And then when they really started to get into some of the live and even one-on-ones for the receivers, and then ultimately 7-on-7, they were doing it as far as possible from the fans. It literally, we're straining, trying to figure out what the heck's going on. You can't see because you have the wall of gigantic human beings blocking you way down in the field. So you basically get to see the end of a couple routes here and there. So take all this with a grain of salt. But that was what I saw D-line wise. Offensive line is what you would expect, right, from left to right. But then I think the more interesting ones are the second stringers and the third stringers. Larry Borum on the left tackle, Leatherwood at left guard, Lucas Patrick at center, Jatir Carter at right guard, and then you had Collins, that new signee who was actually at the right tackle there. I think that's pretty interesting. I mean, coming in off the street and then popping in already is, in theory, at the way that this is currently kind of rolling, your second string right tackle. Now, keep in mind, if for some reason, knocking wood, Darnell Wright goes down or something, the chances that Collins is actually sliding in there are low. You're probably going to reshuffle your line, but just at least to see that's interesting.
Yeah, giving them a chance to get in there and get some symmetry with those guys. I think it's more about the reps for a guy like him just getting there than anything else, But I will be keeping an eye on it and listening to everything I can find out about it. I mean, they brought him in for some reason. I think swing was our need, I think, in my opinion. So, his tape looked pretty good based on what I saw.
Yeah, absolutely. He hasn't played a ton, but when he has played, he's looked serviceable, and that's like what you kind of need, at least in that backup role. You can't have enough offensive linemen, so just to have someone that you can confidently throw in there and say, "Look, I need you to be able to exist and not just get our quarterback killed," is great.
Right. What about I love the thought of hearing Alex Leatherwood being kicked inside. I haven't heard of him playing outside at all in this camp, and I think just based on what we know so far about him and his struggles at tackle, I think I have just a sneaky suspicion that's going to be money for us and him being moved inside, and it's a safer position. It's more physical, but it's a safer position where he's not isolated on the edge and his flaws being exploited.
Yeah, absolutely. And when he was first picked up by the Bears, I mean, honestly, that's where I thought they were going to go with it. I thought they were going to throw him inside because he struggled mightily at tackle. He's got a lot of the traits that you look for in your offensive lineman, but just the outside's tough. But when you can be that guard, right, and you're more worried about double teams, the defensive linemen you're worrying about on the inside aren't quite as quick. It's a different world, and I think he can definitely survive, if not potentially thrive there a lot better.
Yeah, I was looking at Jatir Carter getting first team RG reps. What was that all about? Did you see any of that?
Yeah, they actually rotated a couple of guys in there. Like Lucas Patrick and Jatir Carter both got some first team reps. I think it goes back to what we've seen a couple of the practices. You heard this happened also on the defensive side. Alan Williams talked about this. Luke Getsy talked about this. I think it's all about the reps. They're managing some guys' reps, and they're also trying to get other guys more reps. So, are we expecting Carter to be there week one? No, that's not going to happen. But get him comfortable working with Justin Fields. Get him comfortable, sitting next to Darnell, right? So that if he does have to slide in there, it's not the first time it's happening. You also saw a little earlier in some of the warmups, they had all three lines out there and they were rotating the quarterbacks amongst all three lines as they were taking handoffs and just doing some throws on air, essentially. So that was really nice to see where it wasn't just Cody Whitehair that Justin was taking snaps from, right? He was also getting snaps from a Doug Kramer. He was also getting snaps from a Lucas Patrick. And so that way you're repping this and getting some more muscle memory with these guys.
Right. Speaking of Cody Whitehair, that went like wildfire all over Twitter that he was walked off the field holding his hand or wrist. Someone said, I think later on in that thread of tweets, that he came back out on the field.
He did.
Did you see what happened?
We weren't able to see what happened. That happens when they were in the opposite end zone way far away. But hand wrist stuff with offensive linemen is kind of par for the course. Even if you aren't in pads, it just kind of happens. But he came back. He went back and he was able to snap. There weren't any issues. The only time I ever saw an issue with the snap was in warmups. One with to PJ Walker that went over his head, but that was the one-off.
That's not. I was worried for a second. I was like, "Oh my God, we don't need this early in camp."
Right.
So, other than the offensive line, what about the 2-minute drill? I kept hearing about that. That looked pretty good. It was off and it was on, but overall, it looked pretty decent.
So yeah, the 2-minute drill as a whole was pretty good. So the first team offense went against the second team defense. So even that, take it with a grain of salt. But kind of the breakdown that I saw: first play, little screen to Equanimeous St. Brown for about 2 yards or so, and then second down, Justin's able to scramble off to the right for a first down. The pressure was solid. I mean, there's no pads again or anything like that, but the fact that he couldn't find someone to get open, but he took off solid, moved the chains. The third play, that one was almost worried about. I described it as a bit of a hospital ball to DJ Moore across the middle. DJ still caught it, but the problem is you're in a 2-minute drill. Pass across the middle is always tough, and he really left. It was kind of high and behind him, so he really had to reach. And if you had a middle linebacker or a safety coming downhill, you worry about that kind of a throw. But he completed it. DJ caught it. A nice pass to Komet over the middle. They called a timeout and then ended it with a touchdown to Equanimeous St. Brown.
Okay. The word is Dante Pettis is still not practicing. Could that be a reason why they went and they're working out? I think his name is Victor Bolden Jr. He's basically a punt return specialist. Him not practicing, I'm assuming that might be a camp replacement for Dante Pettis until he's healthy. I know he wasn't on the field, but did you see any signs of Pettis?
I saw, yeah, Pettis was out and around. He was mainly on the sideline, walking around, talking to guys, hanging out. So two players really that weren't practicing, him and Eddie Jackson. Eddie was walking around with the clipboard. Nothing to worry about. It wasn't an injury or anything like that. They just kind of gave him the practice off. The practice actually ended with an interception by Tremaine Edmonds, and Eddie sprinted over there and was celebrating. So everything's good on that end. But yeah, with Dante, it's described as he's on the NFI, that non-football injury. So who knows really what's going on there. But like you said, you still need camp bodies. You still need, when you run out your third string, second string guys, you need enough receivers, and you want to manage those reps still. It's a long training camp. It's a long summer before the season starts. So, you don't want to have to dive in and use too many miles in these guys' legs. So whether it's the pickup of Ford, which actually I really liked what he did out there today, or like you're saying, bringing in another guy just to get some of those reps, it's good to have.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of injuries, people were worried because Eddie Jackson wasn't practicing today. I got word right before we came on here. It was a vet day or something like that. So people don't worry about that. No problem with that at all. Heard that Travis Homer looked pretty smooth catching the ball out there.
So there was one whole period there where all the running backs were catching balls from the quarterbacks, just a couple leaking out the middle, some swing routes out the side, a couple of wheel routes, things like that. And honestly, of everyone's hands, his looked just the most natural. He was able to just catch and run. Herbert fought the ball a little bit. Roshan fought the ball. He had a couple drops here and there, even that I think it was 2. one in 7-on-7 specifically, where he was just wide open in the flat and dropped it. That wasn't super great. Deontay looks fine. So I was worried the most about what I saw out of Herbert and Roschon today in terms of that pass catching. But Travis Homer, I think that's why you brought him in here. You brought him in here to potentially be that third down back. If you do need a running back in the slot, that kind of a thing. And so I was really enthused with what I saw out of him today.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I did write that down. They sounded like they were struggling. I think I got that one from you. Claypool, how's he looking out there? I hear he's catching that ball really well out there.
Today he was a little invisible. Part of it was there were just so many times where I'd be like, all right, cool, Chase is up. Who's throwing on the ball? Okay, it's Nathan Peterman. Okay, this is going to be interesting. Oh, wait, the ball's so far behind him. Like, I can't even get a look of what Claypool's doing because you can't get him the ball. And then when it came to the later part of practice where they were coming into the end zone that we were sitting at, he really just didn't get any targets. It was a lot of DJ Moore, a lot of Robert Tonyan, and some Darnell Mooney as well. So some of the people you do want to see were getting the ball, but Chase just really didn't get many looks. It wasn't even a separation issue. When I tried as much as I could to watch Justin's eyes and the progression, it seemed like, a lot of times the first, second read was there. DJ was open. Tanyan was open. Komet was open. And so they didn't get to that third, fourth read, which I believe Claypool was more often than not. So, when he was running routes on air during some of the one-on-ones, the balls that I thought he should catch, he caught. It wasn't like he dropped any, but there was a couple that were left on the table, I think, because of poor throws from the quarterback. And then we didn't get to see too much in that red zone period or that 7-on-7, just because he didn't get looked at.
Okay. For the fifth day in a row since camp started, there's been a handful of guys that have been day in and day out. These are the guys that are being spoken about highly during camp. And to a lot of people's surprise, maybe, Velus Jones, man, I keep hearing nothing but good things about this cat, man. How much better is he looking out there? It sounds really good when I look at it on Twitter.
He's definitely looking a lot more comfortable. There was he bobbled one pass, and that was the one that led to the Tremaine Edmonds touchdown. So that was a bit disappointing, especially as that kind of cherry on top end of the camp there. But everything else looks good. I mean, I really wish we had seen some kick return, punt return stuff from him, because I think that's going to be something that's very important. But they were really just more working on kickoff. So he was one of the guys on kickoff, and he got down there real quick. I mean, we know that Velus is fast. I would definitely expect him to do well and kick off as a gunner on punt return, things like that. And then when he did get looks on offense, everything looked fine. He wasn't fighting the ball. He actually had one route that was pretty nice. I'm trying to see in my notes here. I can't remember who it was against, but it was basically a double move, just quick slant in, cut back out, and he left him in the dust. So that was fantastic to see out of him, just because he definitely has so much potential. But it was last year, as he even admitted, was a bit tough for him.
I heard that victim was Elijah Hicks.
Yep, that was it. Just found it, Elijah Hicks.
That's so good to hear about Velus. I've been preaching about this guy, man. Him being a player in the first time in a West Coast offense. I think people just refuse to give him a break, just because people are people and they don't really understand things. I knew he'd look a lot better coming into this camp after a year in the off season of getting the playbook understood. I just understand how that works. He's not thinking as much out there. He's out there having fun, and he's playing fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And he even said that, he thought walking in to be a lot easier than it was, but realizing it's different to be a professional. It's different taking care of your body. There's a different intensity to not just the summer program, but to the season. There's a difference in the playbook, and they're going to ask more of him. He said even himself, he wasn't asked to do, the full route tree, and they were like, Velus, we need you to be able to do more. So the fact, like you just said, the fact that he was able to spend an entire off season honing his craft, I think is starting to show a bit. There's still some stuff to work on for sure, but it's better off than I think what we saw last year, especially because last year we just didn't see a lot because he was out.
No question about it. And the video of the day so far that I've seen is the Jalen Johnson getting mossed by DJ. What did that look like?
It was great. I mean, I wish we could have been closer. That was one of the ones in the far end zone, but luckily for us, it was in the right corner of the end zone, so we could see it. It was a beautiful back shoulder throw. Just DJ had leaned back, fully extending a little up and over Jalen. I mean, Jalen was in good coverage, but it was just a better throw and a better catch. And that's just one of the things that makes you excited for this upcoming season, because last year, you didn't, especially with Mooney out, you didn't have receivers that were going to make those kinds of plays. The fact that Justin's just going to be able to go, okay, first of all, where the heck's DJ? Okay, maybe if he's covered, he probably still isn't covered, and then you can move on to your progression. It's going to be so nice for Justin to have. That was probably one of the best catches of the day, outside of another pass to DJ closer to us. It was actually a better throw in all reality. I mean, Justin threw it through a keyhole. He zips that thing in there against the coverage. Had to put it real hard on DJ, and DJ was able to come down with it. You hear a lot of receivers back in year one of Justin talking about how Justin can throw so hard that sometimes it's hard to catch. DJ caught it. And so that's nice to have a receiver with those hands.
I love hearing it. I swear I do. That sounds great. I got another note here. It says Tyler Scott, he murked Tyreek on a slant pattern and just kind of got some space on him and just caught the ball and took off. Did you get to see that?
Yes. In terms of separation, honestly, Tyler Scott probably created the most today that I saw. Just play in and play out he actually got overthrown once by PJ Walker in the corner of the end zone. That was a bummer. But yeah, that one route that he had on Tyreek, it stinks for Tyreek because he keeps ending up on people's highlights, whether it's on DJ Moore, whether it's on Tyler Scott. But I think that's just because it's trial by fire for him a little bit. Like, hey, go guard these guys. Yeah. But it was a nice route by Tyler, and it was again a nice hard throw. Drops at times were a bit of an issue today. A couple here and there by him, but he stuck that one.
I think this note here is from I think my man Jason McKee. I think it's from him. He says Khalil Herbert's not looking really good in pass pro. I'm gonna say that and say this at the same time. It's really difficult to be good in a pass protection without pads on. When you really want to stick your head in there and stamp a guy and stop that pass rusher, I'm pretty sure most of the running backs didn't look very good in pass pro. What did you see?
Pretty much exactly like you said. I mean, it definitely looked like he struggled a little bit more, but I'm not going to lie. Like, even if I'm a professional football player, I don't want to step up and block Travis Gibson coming hard off the edge when I have no pads on. I'm sorry. It's not something I'm super pumped about. Technique wise, is it better than what I think we saw last year? Yes. But you also saw the difference when you looked at a Deontay Foreman and Roshan Johnson. Their technique was a little more sound on that. So you definitely want to give him a little credit with not having the pads, but at the same time, understand like there's still a little bit of a disconnect there.
Right. And here's another guy that keeps coming up every time I look at Twitter and the camp is open. Robert Tonyan. I heard that he's playing in the slot today, and he's looking really good. And they positioned him in the slot at times, and he looked really good. Did you see anything?
He's all over the place. There's a couple times where they did it with a couple people, Chase, Claypool, Cole Kmet, Robert Tonyan, where they would start in the backfield, motion out to the slot, start in the slot, motion across. But I feel like almost most of the touchdowns today were Tonyan. And a lot of them were wide open ones too. Nice play design. Again, not in pads, so you have to honor this. But, Justin rolling out and the defense, kind of being in the general vicinity. But he just keeps producing, and he made a couple really nice catches too. There was one in particular where he high pointed it in the end zone when they were doing red zone. It's from about the 15. Nice ball by Justin. He put it in a place where only Tonyan could get it, but Tonyan finished it, which we've missed out on, honestly, in Chicago here, a tight end that can do that consistently. So that was really nice to see.
Okay. Zach Pickens. I heard he's getting 13 reps. Is that about right?
It was pretty invisible. It was hard to see today. Most of the defensive line stuff was on the opposite field, like way, way far away. But when we got to live, it was kind of a Where's Waldo situation, trying to find him. And what was he was doing. He got a couple of second ones team reps in there, but mostly I saw a lot of third team. He's a little buried right now in that depth chart. I really hope we start to see him show out a little more. With the pads come on, I think that'll be big for him, especially because he's definitely struggled with the run game. His thing is more about getting to the quarterback. So when you have the pads on, when you can create some contact, that'll be really interesting to see. But as of right now, it's definitely an uphill battle for him.
Yeah, it's definitely when you're playing in the trenches, man, it's hard to really evaluate at all anything other than hand placement and foot speed and things like that. The actual play that needs to happen and the action that needs to happen, the real evaluation comes Wednesday when they put the pads on for those guys. So, yeah, it's about what you would expect for somebody in shorts playing in the trenches. So, I heard Kyler is blowing screen games up out there. It's like the second or third day in a row I've heard that. How true is it?
outside of that Tremaine Edmonds interception for a touchdown, that was probably my favorite defensive play of the day. They had a screen pass out to Herbert after a little. That was actually the play where Chase lined up in the backfield. He motions out. They had a couple blockers, but Kyler just wove his way in there, and basically as soon as the ball got there, I mean, if Herbert should be really happy that there weren't pads on, because he would have just gotten rocked by Gordon. And Gordon just took a nice little victory run about 10 yards past afterwards after he let up on the wrap. So it was pretty good to see that, especially because, Gordon had a bit of a rough year at the beginning of last year into the middle. He had to play outside. He had to play in the slot. There's a lot to learn. He came on at the end of the year. So having a strong camp is huge for him.
I heard Sanborn is getting back in there getting first team reps today. Did he look like he was full go, or were they limiting him?
So he definitely didn't play as many snaps as I think he could have. He had a couple of first team, and that's the thing, right? When you're in sub packages and all that, he wasn't even out there a ton. That Sam position, essentially, what he's playing is probably getting the least amount of snaps of any starter. But yeah, he was like quote unquote the starting Sam today, and he also played second team as it's hard to determine, but he was playing next to Noah Sewell as like that second tier of linebackers as well. It didn't seem like they were holding him back a ton necessarily, but rotating him in and out, and it was nice to see him able to go live.
Only a few questions left for you, Doc, man. Just I know you got to get out of here and do your thing, man. Terrell Smith, did you see him playing corner, safety, or just one position?
Yeah, today was pretty much just corner from what I saw. It was a lot of, you had with Eddie Jackson out, you had Elijah Hicks playing safety alongside Jaquan Brisker. He had definitely a couple of reps he wishes he could have had back at corner. Eberflus came over at one point to give him a little pep talk. But, he still made a couple nice plays too. He was decent in coverage. The offense won, I feel like, a good portion of the day, except for there was a 7-on-7 period where there was the Justin Fields interception. There was a PJ Walker interception. There was a curl route that I believe Tanyan ran that got just batted away, blown up. That 7-on-7, the defense just had the offense's number. And Terrell Smith was a part of that.
Right. I've seen this a couple of times a day, and I haven't heard much about this guy, but when I do hear something, it's sounding really good, and it's sounding Treston Ebner. How did he look coming out of the backfield? People are telling me he was nice coming out of the backfield, smooth, catching the ball and running.
He had a couple of nice catches for sure. And you can't evaluate the run game right now very much. It's whatever. It's Wednesday will be when that really starts to kick off. I think it's going to be an uphill battle for him for sure. When you look at the people that are ahead of him, especially after a day like today, I think Homer currently has the advantage over him, and having to have a fullback, probably Kyrie Blasingame. There's only so many running backs you're going to carry. For me right now, he's a practice squad candidate, but he's cementing himself as you should definitely have a role for him on that practice squad, just in case you need or want to elevate him, though.
Okay. A couple more questions, and this is all the notes I have. I heard about, this is the second time I've heard about Greg Stroman getting a pick in practice.
Ooh, yeah.
First or second day, but then now today he's probably on somebody's radar. Like, hey man, he looks serious out there.
My favorite part of the whole thing too. So he picked off PJ Walker.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was down in the red zone area. The ball's on like the 10 or so. So he picks it off right around the goal line, and he sprinted 100 yards. He went the entire field. The fans were loving it. The defense was going wild. He's got a nose for the ball though. It was a good route jump. It wasn't just, PJ threw it into his lap. Stroman played the route real well and caught. That was the thing too. A lot of DBs you see catch with their chest. He caught it with his hands and took off. He was a guy that for me in previous years we saw some flashes, and you can, similar to offensive linemen, you cannot have enough cornerbacks. So if he can be someone that could be a rotational guy for you, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, Kendall Vildor, hey, you better start making some noise out there, dude. That's speaking to you directly, dude. That's nobody's situation is permanent, though. You gotta perform. You gotta take the ball away, because that's what these guys covet.
I didn't write down Vildor's number a single time today.
Wow, I haven't seen a word about Kendall Vildor, and that's probably not good. And so, one question, but one thing I want to mention to you before you got out, Tremaine Edmonds got a pick 6 on PJ Walker. What did that look like, and the celebration?
Yeah, that was the one where, Velus bobbled the pass, and then Tremaine was able to snag that. So not a great look for Velus Jones in that one. But It's nice to have a linebacker that is so fluid, so fast, so long. With him standing next to TJ Edwards, it's crazy, right? It looks like a man and his kid kind of a thing in just how big that Edmonds is. But, he grabbed it. I mean, the practice was kind of over. It's not like anyone was hunting him down, but he took it back all the way to the end zone and just got swarmed by the rest of the defense. Like I said earlier, Eddie Jackson came over, just sprinted from the sideline and jumped on him too. And so, they were celebrating right in front of us. So, they were kind of voguing a little bit, playing it up for the crowd, which was really fun. The energy on that was fantastic.
That sounded like a lot of fun, man. I'm getting goosebumps on my arms just imagining that. One last thing before you get out, man. This isn't a question. This is something that was breaking, I think, while you were on the field watching practice. Breaking news came out that the Minnesota Vikings are looking for a trade partner for Danielle Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that player?
I like Danielle Hunter. I think he's been in the league for a while. He's around, I believe he's 28 or so. He's like an oldish 28 in terms of the mileage on him. However, if you traded for him, he'd be the best pass rusher on the Bears, like obviously. And the only thing I worry about with him in terms of a trade is there a chance there's a in-division tax on that? Now, the Lions and the Vikings have done a bunch of trades recently, and that hasn't been the case. Like when the Vikings traded for TJ Hawkinson, it almost was like the Vikings were giving him away, kind of a thing. And if Danielle Hunter is just not going to get the money that he wants from the Vikings, because the Vikings are in a weird spot. They're not really contending, but they're not really rebuilding. And a lot of their moves are kind of going both directions. They're probably going to move on from Kirk Cousins soon. They got to pay Justin Jefferson soon. And I assume he's going to make probably at least $32 million a year. Can you pay a Danielle Hunter? And what does that look like? So I absolutely, if I'm the Bears, I'm obviously making that phone call as many times as possible. I'm calling the Vikings at least once a day, being like, hey, what can we do to make this happen? Because he would absolutely transform the defensive line pretty quickly.
I was just speaking to Chris about this right before we came on and did this recording. And I spoke to him and I said, in a draft, I don't care who you're drafting. Every draft is a reach because it's a player and you're projecting what that player is going to be. So you're going to develop that guy and this is what you project him to be. It's when you have draft capital or any kind of capital, all your resources, you're investing a resource into drafting that player. What would you rather do? Use a resource on a unproven talent or somebody that you have to develop, or a proven talent and you know what you're getting? To me, it's a no-brainer. You do what you have to do to get a guy because you're going to have to you got to go for an edge rusher or two in next year's draft. I'd rather have the known commodity than to reach for a player.
Absolutely. It depends on what you're trading. I'm giving away a second rounder, no question. I'm giving away maybe 2 second rounders, no question. If we're having a conversation about it first, we might have to delve on that a little bit. But if you can create a situation where you can get an impactful player at a premium position with a pick that, again, like you said, is a big question mark. And then what if you can even pair that with a high draft pick or a moderate draft pick of another edge rusher, if there's someone sitting on the board at that point in time? You've all of a sudden gone from having one of the worst pass rushes in the league to at least a moderate one, if not a good one, depending on, who that other draft pick might be. So you definitely have to consider that, the bird in the hand, 2 in the bush, I think is a very applicable phrase here, because everyone's always like, well, draft picks. I was like, well, those draft picks have to work. They have to pan out. 2 second round picks this year, Gervin Dexter's, Tyreek Stevenson, they could be great and they're cost controlled, all that jazz, but you still don't know yet. I think they're going to be solid. I've seen some solid things out of Tyreek Stevenson. He's been picked on a lot this camp, like I said, but he's a rookie. So why not to get that established veteran and cash in when you can?
I agree 110%, man. To me, that's the move. And I wouldn't think too much about it if the right conversations are being had, the right proposal is being given. I think you jump on it twice on Sunday at least. But how you guys like that for notes and camp updates, folks? Doesn't get any better than Dr. Mason West, the good doc. Very thorough, man, very informative. I felt like I was at the practice, and I feel privileged to have you as an associate that I can lean on to and to help the fans out, feel like they were at the camp. So great job, Doc, man. I really appreciate you being here, man. And we'll be speaking to you soon.
Absolutely. Appreciate you.
Thank you. That's a good doc, Dr. Mason West, guys.